Good night, Diego Martin. Good night, Trinidad and Tobago, coming to you from Bagatelle in Diego Martin. This is the voice of the People's National Movement. Permit me to welcome to this platform tonight my other fellow candidates of the PNM General Elections 2020. For the constituency of Diego Martin Northeast, the country's Minister of Finance, Colum Imbert. For the constituency of Aruka Maloney, the Minister of Social Services and Family Affairs, Mrs. Camille Robinson-Regis. For the constituency of the Land of Water, Arima, Mrs. Penny Beckles-Robinson. And for the constituency of Diego Martin Central, the chairman of the Diego Martin Corporation, soon to be the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin Central, Mr. Simon Dinobriga. Ladies and gentlemen, these are different times. These are different times for different reasons. For those of you at home and abroad following us, what you may not be experiencing is a hall of enthusiastic people spaced out as they have never been in a PNM meeting before, and each one wearing a mask. Ladies and gentlemen, these are difficult times. These are dangerous times. Almost exactly 100 years ago, this country and the rest of the world was in this situation. There was a pandemic in 1918 that killed people like flies. Today, in Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the world, we are in a general election during a pandemic. I have absolutely no doubt that had I not called this election, had I come to the population and say we are in a pandemic and therefore we ought not to and cannot have a general election, the town crier would have been out there shouting that we are disenfranchising the country and we should have election. Because they just cannot be pleased. Many countries have had elections during this period because you know something? We don't know how long this is going to go on for. We also do not know the extent of the behavior of the virus. So what we have done from day one, what we in this country have done from day one, in an already difficult period, was to ensure that we preserve the lives of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I have heard it said from other platforms, don't blame COVID. The country was in a bad shape before. That might be the only truthful statement coming from those confounded lips. Trinidad and Tobago was in big trouble before. We make no bones about that. It is because we were in big trouble as a country why a party that had been given 20-odd seats in the parliament, the next time they go to the polls, you rejected them out of hand and elected the PNM in 2015. Their campaign would have you believe that things were wonderfully well and there was some magical change for some obstreperous reason. And now the country is in a bad way. Ladies and gentlemen, let us not forget what brought the PNM into government in 2015. This country was going to hell in a corrupt handbasket. And you had to get rid of those who were there. And once again, you put the PNM in office. And we came into office to solve problems. And we have been solving problems. We came into office to deal with difficult situations. And we have been managing those difficult situations. In fact, we have managed some of them so well that some people believe that we were never in difficulty. One of the biggest difficulties we faced when you handed us the authority of repairing this country's position was, what do we do about the livelihood of the people of Trinidad and Tobago? In this country, the largest employer of people in Trinidad and Tobago is the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And in all the difficulties that we have faced, we have not retrenched or removed one person from office as a policy in reduction of the government expense. Every single person who was employed by the government on a permanent public service job, daily paid or monthly paid, have remained in that job during that difficult period. And they could say what they want. These are the facts. We didn't do that for any special reason other than to ensure that families, children, the elderly in our country survive the difficult period. Ladies and gentlemen, let us not take our circumstance for granted. One of the commitments I made to you when I became Prime Minister, in that difficult situation, looking ahead from 2015 onwards in the 5-year term which is ending now, I said to you then that the easy way out was the International Monetary Fund, and I will ensure that during my term that Trinidad and Tobago does not go to the IMF, and we've kept that promise. But we had to find other ways and means to be able to keep this country afloat and alive and to have a future without doing that. And that is why tonight I have put first and foremost out in our campaign of 2020 the Minister of Social Development and Family Services, so that all those 200,000 families who live off the government support can understand that if we approach it differently, those who believe that they can come and feed you for the election season, and on the 11th of August, you won't see them again for another 5 years. You better understand, ladies and gentlemen, the extent to which the government support families and children and the elderly in Trinidad and Tobago like virtually no other government does anywhere in the world. Because you see, it is our understanding that we are all in this together. In this difficult situation, we have a general election. What do? Do we come here and talk to you about how much money was stolen by the last government? That you know already. Do we come to you and tell you that we're going to open back Caroni and we're going to open back Petrotrim and we're going to do this? No, that is just fooling you because they believe you're stupid. What we will come to you do and to tell you about the circumstances in Trinidad and Tobago and report to you on our stewardship in the period 2015 to 2020. That is what this campaign is about. But before we do that, we tell you we're doing it differently. Normally a campaign launch of the general election in this party, there'll be thousands of us out there, wherever we are, in Pigot's Corner, in Diego Martin, in San Fernando. This year we cannot do that. This year it is dangerous. This year we're hiding from a virus. This year we're trying to stay alive. So we are like we are in this room, spaced out, physically distanced, as per the protocol of the Chief Medical Officer, wearing our mask. And our campaign is saying to you, don't rally in thousands in the squares you normally do, but rally at home. We come into you. Fortunately, the technology brings us to you. So as we talk to you from Diego Martin, you meet at home in your living room, Have a group of friends wherever you are, in every constituency. You know that you gather there in the numbers that you are allowed to do legally and safely, and we'll conduct a campaign like we've never done before. It's all about information, and from the PNM platform, it's about education and truth and understanding your country. So this different campaign of 2020, we will be going out in various areas of the country and doing exactly what we're doing here now. But on every occasion, we will carry this conversation, the news and the information to the homes, inside the home. We ask you to rally with us. We're coming to you as against you coming to us. And when we come to you, we bring to you the facts of our circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, the problems that we met, some of them are still there. But fortunately, some of them have been solved. And we were doing reasonably well under difficult circumstances up until New Year's Day 2020, when everything changed, I had the misfortune to hear a little bit of the alternative to the PNM recently. And if you had come in from Mars or from Jupiter, you would have thought that something was happening in Trinidad and Tobago that was as a result of the government of the day, and that the world was not engaged in a pandemic. Let me say to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, you are required to be sensible, to be receptive, to be critical, and to be willing to be part of the country's solution. You understand what is happening in other countries outside of Trinidad and Tobago? We are very close to and connected to the United States. There's virtually no family in Trinidad and Tobago who does not have a family member or a close relative in America. And for those of you who are in touch with them, and those of you who look at the news, America is the richest country in the world. 40 million people unemployed and counting. Every week, over 1 million people losing their jobs in the richest country of the world. Every single business house engaged in trade and commerce either has gone into bankruptcy or have reduced their footprint in the country. But there's somebody in Trinidad and Tobago, drink some punch and rum, and telling you that your difficulty is the PNM. And put them in office, and as long as they come into office, your problem is solved because they have all the offers for you. And that is an insult to your intelligence. Because you, every single day for the last 3 months, this government has said to you every single day what we are engaged in. You are not ignorant of the facts. And what you want to know is what happens with us going forward. The pandemic is no longer coming, it is here. The pandemic is no longer threatening us, it has damaged us. The pandemic is no longer a threat, it is now our life, our reality. And what you are concerned about is, where do we go from here? What does the future hold? That's what you're concerned about. And when you go to the polls on August 10th, you already went to the polls in 2015 and you voted the UNC out of office because they were a corrupt bunch of people. That was done already. You removed the last prime minister because she failed on the job to protect the country's interests. That was done already. Those who are not in the jail yet, in the courthouse, or they can't come home, or they're running from the police, you know that. All of that is behind you now. What is the issue now is, where do we go from here? And of course, they always have a plan. This PNM government, realizing that our economy had been damaged, virtually brought to a halt knew immediately that a day will come, or the days are upon us, when we have to determine which way we put one foot and which foot we put in front and walking in what direction. So immediately, a responsible PNM Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, sane and sober, selected some of the best talent available to the country based on people who are willing and who are able and who have something to offer the rest of the country to sit down and determine, in the face of all the information and the experience that we have now going forward to 2021 forward, what does this little country do? Not just to continue to survive, but to prosper, to come out of this difficulty and to sustain ourselves. So any plan that is going to be followed in Trinidad and Tobago after August 10th, you know how we arrive at that plan. You know what was put into it, and you know why we're doing it. I want to ask the opposition leader, the Bad Hatter's ball that you're promising this country, whose plan is that? Who in this country wants to put this country hand into that group of people? Half of them don't even know their own direction, personally. The other half looking over their shoulder every time they see a blue light flash or they hear a police siren. Who devised their plan? Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you how their plan works. We were solving problems. Caribbean Airlines was losing $500 million a year. Under this government, up until December 2019, Caribbean Airlines for 2 financial years had been a profit. The profit reported in 2019 was $164 million. Then come January morning, not only our planes in Caribbean Airlines, but tens of thousands of planes around the world are on the ground, can't fly because of the virus. But of course, we want to know that when we reopen our country and we get back to some semblance of normalcy, that we still have Caribbean Airlines. So what do? We have to keep the engineers on. We have to keep the staff in place, because someday soon we hope that those wings will be flying again. What is the alternative? What is the alternative? If we shut down the airline and send people home and do it, but it's costing money. Where is that money coming from? We kept everybody on the job in the Hilton Hotel. Had we sent them home and locked the hotel door because of the virus, could we now have been saying to the CPL, yes, Trinidad and Tobago is the only country in the world that can host a T20 game, as we are going to do in August and September? They're coming into the Hilton, and we start back business in the Hilton because we kept them alive, and the Minister of Finance was paying for that. The Hilton, the Magdalena, and the Hyatt. Because we were confident that we have a future. And as dangerous as the virus is, as damaging as the virus is, we know that one day we will be required to move forward. And that is the forward movement. So we kept the 87,000 people on job in the public service. We kept people in the job in commerce. And we kept the private sector hopeful and alive. But ladies and gentlemen, where is that money to come from? If we were not able to find the money to make those expenses paid, I asked you, people of Trinidad and Tobago, can you envisage the country shut down with no money being spent and tens of thousands of persons home and in the street with no hope and no job? That is the Trinidad and Tobago that we were facing. But the government had to avoid that. We've put ourselves in serious debt to give ourselves a chance to survive when this is over. And that is the most dangerous time to put reckless and irresponsible and corrupt people in charge of the affairs of Trinidad and Tobago. I have said to you early that we will not, as policy, seek to use the IMF as our way out of our difficulties, the difficulties that we found ourselves in 2015. I'm saying to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago tonight, that if you put God out your thoughts and allow those jokers on the other side to have the responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago's affairs, and they put together the mishmash and the stupidity that they're promising you in popularity quest, you will be guaranteed to end up at the IMF. Guaranteed to end up at the IMF. And when you go to the IMF to get support to take us out of where we are in now, the one thing the IMF is guaranteed to do, you see that shopping list of expenditure that Camille Robinson-Regis mentioned tonight, in all those households who are receiving that, the IMF is not going to fund that. Not going to fund that. You see the 87,000 people on the government payroll that are kept there largely to keep people in jobs, the IMF is not going to fund that. You see the water rate and the WASA rate and the gate that we're funding now, while we're borrowing the way we're borrowing now, the IMF is not going to fund that. And then you will know where barley grew. The best thing for this country is to stay as far as possible from Kamla Prasad Bisesa and her kindergarten class. Because solving problems is not a popularity contest, unfortunately. Bad for politicians. Every politician wants to be popular, but some problems are in themselves carrying solutions that will be unpopular, at least for a while. At least for a while. You know the biggest point on the UNC platform now, in competition with the PNM? We are going to open back Petrotrin. That is their big come hither, put us back in office, trying to appeal to those persons who have been affected by the Petrotrin restructuring. Let me remind Trinidad and Tobago what Petrotrin was and is. Petrotrin is a state company that was hiding $6 billion in losses and was owing $850 million US that had to be paid in August 2019, sorry. Let me repeat that. Petrotrin was a company owned by the people of Trinidad and Tobago that was hiding $6 billion in losses in its books and was owing $850 million US that had to be paid by one check, August 2019. Had that been allowed to be ignored the way it was ignored by the previous government, could you imagine on top of that, losing $2 billion a year and come COVID January 2020? What would have been this country's position if we, this government, was not able to treat with that issue, and then the Minister of Finance in 2020 March being called upon to do what he said has been done, what the Minister of Social Development said has been done, what would have been our position? Well, tonight, you see all you praying people in Trinidad and Tobago, this country must thank you, because I suppose it is your prayers and your strength and your support that caused the people of Trinidad and Tobago in 2019 to fix that problem. Because had that problem not been addressed in 2019, I know you are sensible enough to understand what would have been our position. So what did we do? In the face of all the objections from those who were affected and those who figure just leave it so was the policy to follow, we restructured Petrotrin. We didn't close down Petrotrin, we restructured it. close down some good on political platforms and in the union hall. But in your household, in this room, on the street, we restructured Petrotrin. Petrotrin still exists as the parent company. In the restructuring, we created Heritage. Heritage in its first year moved us from losing $2 billion a year in Petrotrin untouched to a profit. And of course, when we did that, they say your car wouldn't get no gas, your truck wouldn't get no diesel, the country gonna fall apart. We created Paria, and we have never been out of fuel for 1 hour in this country. And they told us we wouldn't be able to sell our crude because our crude was not saleable. It could only be used in our refinery, and the crude is sour. Today we're getting $2 to $3 below Brent for our crude. And every so often, Heritage sells a tanker of crude and we make a profit. So we move our oil business from losing up to $7 US per barrel and borrowing money sometimes from the Minister of Finance to bring in oil at 120,000 barrels a day, losing $7 on every barrel. We move from there now. When we sell oil now, we do it profitably. And worse, and what is worse, and tonight I want to speak to the OWTU and their members and their supporters and their family members. The government closed down the refinery because the refinery was the main money loser. In the restructuring, everything else was put in place and we stopped the refinery from operating. But we said we will allow any user who is interested to operate the refinery because we want the business, but not at taxpayers' expense and taxpayers' risk. We go through a process, open it to the world, and at the end of the day, the OWTU came up with the best proposal. But it's a difficult proposal, an expensive proposal to restart that refinery. They made a proposal to us and the Minister of Finance in furtherance of assisting them to get it done because we know what has to be done there if they're going to do it. He said to them, $300 million of what you have offered up front, we will go further with you and give you a moratorium on that so that you will more possibly do what you're saying you're going to do. Well, tonight, there are two options available to the OWTU. One is to go with the government on the government's proposal and we try and get it done. Or two, wait for the UNC to come into office and start it back. Of course, we know that the UNC has no intention of doing anything in the oil industry, not the least of which is encouraging the OWTU to restart any refinery. That is political gobbledygook and stupid talk. The only option for the people of Trinidad and Tobago today is to work with the one proposal we have in front of us, and if we are successful, then we get the refinery restarted. If we are not successful, then it will not be restarted, and it will be number 18 refinery in the world. There are 17 other refineries in the world that are closed down. Some in this region, others elsewhere. But those who are coming to tell you because they believe you're stupid, that the progress that we have made is not progress, it's election for them. We are in a dangerous situation right now, ladies and gentlemen. And the danger is in discipline. It is discipline. It is operating as a disciplined country under inspired leadership across the board, from the cabinet to the Ministry of Health, to the Ministry of National Security. It is discipline that has us in this position today, a good position during a pandemic. It is indecisiveness that would cause us to have had the problem we had last year, August, where nobody prior to this government sought to put us in a position to deal with Petrotrin debt. The $6 billion I told you about had to be written off. Write it off the books. because new accounting standards say money you can't collect after a period of time, you can't be carrying it on your books anymore. Write it off. So billions of dollars written off in Petrotrin books. Right? And then, of course, inaction. So we have to look out for those three demons. The demon of indiscipline, the demon of indecisiveness, and the demon of inaction. Those are the three demons that will destroy our prospect going forward. And to make decisions, ladies and gentlemen, you make decisions for yourself or for the wider national community. The one thing you know is that this PNM government has been making decisions for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So tonight, I can stand on this platform and tell you, without fear of contradiction, there is nobody in my government who is running from the police. There is nobody in my government who has used the office during the last 5 years to further their own interests. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been doing more with less, and nowhere else in the country can point to that more directly than the people of Diego Martin. Tonight you have 3 Diego Martin candidates here who are asking for your support here in Diego Martin, because we can show that the government of Trinidad and Tobago, the PNM government of Trinidad and Tobago, have done more with less in Diego Martin. Having been ignored for the previous 5 years, the one thing we can point to during that 5-year period, and it took a lot of effort on the part of the Member of Parliament and the then Minister of Health. I must give credit to the then Minister of Health, Ford Khan, who had worked with me on that matter, and in his government, we got the Carnage Health Center built. That's the only thing we can point to. And of course, later on, we got the Point Kumana RC school built. Those were the benefits, all we got during that 5-year period. Later on, ladies and gentlemen, development, community development came to Carnage with the completion of the fishing complex. Later on, we got the Diego Martin sporting complex for our young people and ourselves. Still in progress, close to completion, we have the Foros Community Center. This community center that we are in now was completed and opened yesterday. Up there on Wendy Fitzwilliam Boulevard, we have a health center of the finest sort, almost incompleted. Having built out the Diego Martin Highway and created the dangers between our children in Union and the children over in La Puerta going to school, we have built an overpass on our highway, saving lives. In the pipeline for the Diego Martin area, now, later, rather than earlier, we have just turned the sod for the Diego Martin Corporation on the lands of the Port of Spain Corporation given to the state up there. So very soon you're going to have your own Diego Martin Corporation headquarters like every other corporation in Trinidad. And of course, that complicated traffic, that dangerous traffic system between Westmall, Victoria Keys, Diego Martin and St. James, we have just turned the sod for the construction of the overpass in that area to create safety. And of course, having kept you healthy, having kept you strong, if you want to walk about in the afternoon, take a walk for your own physical exercise, you go to West Park, up there in West Mall. We have our own Western Savannah. And these are additional to everything Camille Robinson-Regis said there, affected the people of Diego Martin as it affected positively the people of Cuba, of San Grande, of San Fernando, because we took the whole culture along with us. Right? But ladies and gentlemen, we can only do that if we are a disciplined people. We can only do that if we take the actions that have to be taken. Let me say something to the labor unions tonight. It is not easy under these circumstances to keep everybody in a job. Those persons who are on the government payroll, they have something to be thankful for up front. One, that they have a job. It is government policy not to have reduced the public service so that they could have a job. We do not have the resources to pay them at the level that all of us would like to pay them at. Whenever the circumstances are right, rest assured that public servants will get whatever is due to them. And this government can talk about that. Because one of the things we started out with in that difficult start, that hard start that we had in September of 2015, was to borrow $6 billion and pay public servant back pay. So when you hear union leaders saying that this government wicked and this government disrespectful because we have not given public servants anything, ask them, since when you're calling $6 billion nothing? We started with that. And that was a most difficult period. And the reason why we had to borrow the money to pay it is because the money was not there when the contract was offered. We did not renege on the contract. We borrowed the money and we paid it. And today that we are in a pandemic, which is causing the Minister of Finance to look for $20 billion that we never expected to have to find to keep you alive and to keep the country alive. Just remember that this country's position under the PNM is that we are all in this together. And it is not for the people who have jobs to disrupt and break up the country because they want some more and put the lives of those who have nothing at risk. There are many people in this country who have nothing. The people who Mr. Robinson Reggie spoke about there, in many of those households, the only money they have that come into them is the money they get from the government at the end of the month that keep body and soul together. Think about those people. And think about us as a country borrowing to spend it the way that we are. We can only do so much of that. I am hoping, I'm expecting that sometime in the not too distant future, we'll get the better of this pandemic. We'll get the better of this virus. And we then begin to build, because right now, not much building is taking place. Could you imagine a simple exercise like agreeing to host the CPL in Trinidad and Tobago? You would think that our opponents would be happy that our country is able to do that. No, that too is something to criticize. That too is something to be negative about. But you see, some of them don't have to see milk to sour it, you know. They will have to think about it. They have absolutely nothing positive to offer this country. They have absolutely nothing useful to say. You know, when I hear some of them talking, I say, you know, I wished they were in the cabinet with me. And then I would turn to them on the table and say, what is your solution? This problem that we are talking about, what is your solution? They have nothing useful to offer. Nothing. The biggest point I could tell you is that they are training people. I want to train them in what? Training them in what? I'll tell you something. Nobody in my government is being trained in anything other than service. Service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The problems that we have to solve. Crime problem number one, still with us. problem of crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago. They're always talking about it as a political issue. But don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that was the same person who sat in a cabinet and for 3 years refused to have a commissioner of police appointed. I have to listen to them now talking about crime. A commissioner of police was appointed by this government for the first time in 3 years. We had structures in place to fight criminal conduct. Don't forget, they shut down everything they met. Subsequent to shutting it down, problems in Venezuela. Venezuelans rushing across the border here every night, every morning, from the south, from the north, from the west, from the east. We have no patrol craft outside there that can stay out there. Stay out there and protect us from these migrants who are rushing into our country. What is their solution? What is their solution to that? Their solution is to write the Australian government, tell the Australian opposition to oppose the Australian government that is helping us to get 2 Coast Guard vessels to patrol our southern borders and our western border and our northern and our eastern border. That is the solution. We manage in this difficult period, and by proper international diplomacy at the CARICOM, at the Commonwealth level, to get Australian funding and Australian help, because we as a CARICOM, as a Commonwealth country, we maintain close relations with Australia. So when the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago talks to the Prime Minister of Australia about this problem we have with our borders and with Venezuela, within a week, we had a commitment from Australia, and those vessels are being built now. Unfortunately, they too are affected by COVID. So only a couple of days ago, the company that is building the boats have indicated to us an intention to declare whether or not there are delays in the construction, because COVID is in Australia too. So what is their solution? We came into government in 2015. For 2 years, the conversation was the ferry, 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 the ferry. Ferries that they had not maintained. Ferries that they had not maintained to the point where they had to be taken out of service. And when they taken out of service for that reason, for having not been maintained, a new government is now responsible. Of course, we took responsibility. And there were days when we could not service Tobago properly. And them and their friends, there's one particular loudmouth woman up and down the TV every day. But the bottom line is, what is the solution? We have come to solve problems. We have come to solve problems. How do you solve the problem with the ferries in Tobago? We buy 2 new ferries. All kinds of stopgap measures in between, but at the end of the day, we had to buy 2 new ferries. And once again, we must thank the Australians for helping us to buy those 2 ferries. It's the first time on the service between Trinidad and Tobago since the panorama that we would have brand new ferries. As for fast ferries, it's the first time we'll have brand new fast ferries purpose-built for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. 2 of them. One is due here sometime soon, the APT James, and later in the year, or possibly early next year, the other one is due here, the Buko Reef, under construction specifically for this purpose. We are solving problems. We are solving problems. And when they get up and have a lot to say, just ask them, what is your solution? And then you will realize that their solution in this election is to spend as much of the money they thief to come into the constituencies and pay you $300 for your vote. Let me say to every citizen in Trinidad and Tobago, under the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, it's an offense to pay somebody to vote. We start with that. But secondly, your vote is worth more than $300. And anybody who paying you to vote is insulting you and your intelligence, and your children's future is at risk in the hand of any such person. The one question you must ask them, where is that money coming from? We know the answer already, but ask them the question. That is the money they thief, that they know coming out, and their friends who help them thief it, paying to get them back into office to continue the thieving. That is what you're facing, you know. And of course, while we come here and stand in front of you and tell you what our objective is and why we want to win the next election, to continue to protect you from the stupidity and the irresponsibility and the difficulty you're facing, their major interest is to hide from the police. They want to get back into government to stop the numerous criminal operations at the police against them for their misconduct. You would have heard us saying nothing about it, and you would have heard them saying, oh, nothing happened, and they were saying we corrupt. I'll tell you why. Because if we talk about what we know about what is happening with them, that is their defense. Them and the lawyers run and go to the court and say, the Prime Minister said this, and the Minister of National Security said that, and it's political persecution. We have kept our silence and we've left them to the police. So whenever the number is called, they must not be able to say that the difficult circumstance is as a result of any political persecution or prosecution. Let the wheels of justice turn. They turn slowly, but they do turn. But what galls me is when I see the leader of the opposition. She knows why her members are scattered all about. Some of them may even want to come home to their own house and pretending that is something that the government is doing, and has the gall to be talking about we are bringing in people to vote for the PNM. We are bringing in the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and if when they come in, they know what the country's condition is, we know that such persons are quite likely to vote for the PNM, not as a result of anything we do. We know that the people within the border, those who are here, we know we don't have to bring them from nowhere. We know that you are experiencing these difficulties. We know that you are sensible people. We know that you are informed people. And notwithstanding the daily dose of lies that they push at you, at the end of the day, you have to swim and paddle your own canoe. You've got to protect yourself from these people. You've got to protect yourself from those circumstances. You have to ensure that this country does the best that we can. So, in the energy sector, I heard the leader of the opposition reading out a whole list of companies that have closed down in Trinidad and Tobago, ascribing it all to this government. ArcelorMittal. Ladies and gentlemen, you know why ArcelorMittal closed down in Trinidad and Tobago? Even when they were getting subsidized electricity, ArcelorMittal was the largest user of current in this country. And even so, at a price that was favorable. You know, they lost their business because the Chinese production of steel and the Chinese coming into Central and South America, ArcelorMittal could not compete with Chinese steel. So in Trinidad and Tobago, one of the things they were asking us for, and we didn't even come to a point of a decision on it before they closed down, they were asking us to subsidize the electricity even more. And as you do that, in America, the American steel suppliers will suing Trinidad and Tobago for dumping if you give them more support. That is the market. As Prime Minister, the first person who is told is me. When the company says we have to close down one of our plants, a methanol plant, because there is no buyer out there for methanol. What is methanol used for? It is used as a fuel, like gasoline. Look at what's happening in America. Pandemic, everybody shut down. Italy, everybody shut down. So who is using all this fuel that is normally used? Not being used. So there's no market. So they said to us, we can't produce it if we can't sell it. So the thing to do, we have to shut one of the plants down, or even two. And that is the external market that we have no control over. One of the plants is an old plant that is now having difficulty using the gas that's available to be able to make money in this difficult market. So they're saying, look, their board members are saying, look, we can't continue this business. Granted, the business is in Trinidad, but what is the government supposed to do then? Go out and say, okay, we'll take it over, or we'll give you this. There are some things the government can do and some things the government cannot do. We are in the world market for those products. Whether it is LNG, methanol, urea, whatever it is, we are in the world market. And if in the world market there is no buyer, then it is logical to expect that there's a kickback onto us. And rather than see that as a difficult circumstance that requires sensible response, and the sensible response that we have done, we have, as intermediary, we've gone back to the gas suppliers. There are discussions taking place between the gas supplier in Trinidad and Tobago and the gas user, with the government bringing them together, and we are working these out as we are able to. Those are not cabinet decisions. The price of fuel, the price of product, or which plant operates, or which plant closed down, those are not cabinet decisions. Those are commercial decisions outside of the control of the government. So when the opposition leader or anybody, any one of our imps, come talking about what happened in Trinidad and listing this and listing that, you better just see that as a marketplace where we're present, and what she's listing there are the difficult circumstances of the people of Trinidad and Tobago requiring sensible governance to navigate in those storms and navigate in those rapids. And where you find that? In the People's National Movement. Long before it got to that, the 5-year period that they were in office, there was a requirement to negotiate new contracts because some of those contracts were coming to an end. They never negotiated one contract. Some of those companies were on month-to-month gas contracts. It is this government under my leadership who took the initiative to bring NGC and the companies together to agree on a gas price. And one of the biggest lies being told in Trinidad today on political platforms, not the PNM elsewhere, is that our energy sector is dead and in disarray. The opposite is true. Trinidad and Tobago is one of the few places in the world where there is active expenditure in exploration, in offshore and deep water drilling. Because we have made those arrangements with the companies prior to this difficulty, and the companies are keeping their word. BHP, Shell, BP, they are all out there. In fact, there are more rigs in Trinidad and Tobago now and more drill ships here now than there were during the last government time. Because people are looking at a future. They believe, like us, that this country has a future, and this is a place, even in this difficult time, that they can invest. So when the leader of the opposition tells you our energy sector is dead, that is the kind of view that allowed them not to deal with Petrotrin, not to deal with Caribbean Airlines, and just sit in office, enrich themselves, enrich their friends, praise themselves, and leave you with the empty basket. A lot of serious decisions are required to be made about our children's future, about this country's future. And you don't have those decisions made by people who believe that it's all about popularity. I, as leader of this government, I have done what is required to be done, which is to lead a sane and responsible cabinet to treat with the issues that the people of Trinidad and Tobago have. The question is, what next? What next? Who is to make this plan? You've seen how we've made our plan. What is this plan to contain? You would have seen me take a document from the Roadmap Committee and lay it in the Parliament. you would not hear a word from them about that. But you would hear all kind of stupidness, all kind of personality issues, all kind of non-productive old talk. Yeah? And of course, you know, as a people, what do we tell ourselves? Where is the strength of this country? It is our strength that will take us forward and will allow us to cope with our difficulties, not our weaknesses. What they are about is divisiveness and weakness. We are about strength. And one of the strengths I pointed out to you is a strength that you never knew we had, or you wouldn't accept that we had. Today, I'm sure the average person in Trinidad and Tobago would list our health department, our Ministry of Health, as a strength in Trinidad and Tobago. It took a pandemic for you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to understand that we have one of the best healthcare systems in the world in this little island nation. About 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to open in St. James a linear accelerator, which is a machine that costs $84 million, and it is the best machine in the world to treat cancer. Once your cancer is identified, this machine, you can go to where the cancer is and treat it without damaging the tissue around. And it has put us light years ahead. In the public sector, we now have a linear accelerator. We opened the facility 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it was 2 or 3 years ago under this government that we gave that expenditure a priority, and we built the facility, bought the equipment, installed it, and now it's available to you. That's what planning does. It costs $84 million. You have it there, and every person in Trinidad and Tobago, in the region for that matter, can now look forward to service there. But I keep telling you all, in one contract, they bought a little piece of land in Caroni, down in Cuba, and they thieved $120 million on one purchase. I keep telling you all that that machine costs $84 million and will now change so many lives in this country. Give life to somebody who might have died. Give you service that you may never have accepted, got to get, because we didn't have it in the public sector in this country. And if you go to the private sector, you couldn't pay for it out there. But they could give a contractor, just by taking out the clause in a contract, give a contractor $921 million. And having not accounted for that, the same people coming back and telling you now that they're coming back into government. Well, you bring them. You bring them. Because the one thing they could not do, they cannot put themselves back in government. You, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, have to accept or reject. You have to determine what goes on in this country and what you will tolerate, what you will accept, and what you will reject. And I'm saying to you, on August 10th, the case is clear. The case has been made. Come the 10th of August, there are 41 constituencies being contested. And if we are going to survive in this difficult period, in every one of these constituencies, you are required to be responsible people. You are required to elect a government that can do what has to be done in these very difficult circumstances. No other government has had the kind of difficulty that this government has had to face. 1, shortage of money. 2, Venezuelan invasion of people who are economic migrants by the tens of thousands. 3, pandemic. And 4, a lurking corrupt opposition wanting to get back into government. No other government in the history of this country has ever had to face that. So tonight, we start our campaign here in Diego Martin. It's a virtual campaign where, as we talk to you in this hall, we meet larger numbers outside. There will be no rallies of thousands because we are not going to encourage you to congregate and to give the virus a chance to jump from somebody to somebody else. We are saying to you in our campaign, because we are required to put health and safety first, We have in our campaign health officers who look out to ensure that we follow the protocols. And tonight, I want to advise all the other political parties, large or minuscule, as you campaign, do what the PNM has done. Do what you have done before, which is to learn from the PNM and follow these protocols as we go through this election campaign. The whole idea is that we don't congregate in large numbers. No other political party could bring more thousands out in the street than the PNM, but we're not doing that. We are observing the health protocols, but we are communicating with you, the people. And as we do that, let us have a clean and healthy campaign. Let us have a sensible campaign. Educate yourself on the circumstances of our country. Educate yourselves on the fact that what is behind us is behind us. We will not forget the past, because to do so is to surrender our future. But in terms of what happens going forward, it is important for us to have the plan that takes us forward. And the party with the plan is the People's National Movement. The party with the team is the People's National Movement. The party that does not waste government money, that does not steal government money, that has priorities that go from weakness to strength is the People's National Movement. The party that is concerned about our young people and ensuring that the future we're talking about is a modern future where we're moving now to e-identity, where every person in the country will be identified by a unique identifier, and that all our services go digital, and very soon the country will go paperless and cashless. That is what we are talking about. We're talking about a future where we have encouraged through public invitations, and by evaluation we have selected BP and Shell, who are now about to produce for the first time in this country renewable energy over 100 megawatts of power. That is our future. Environmentally, we are going to change the regulations with TNTech to allow producers of energy from renewable sources to feed that into the grid, and therefore we use renewable energy sources to help us to get better in this country and to be more efficient in the use. That's our future. We are going to, in the not too distant future, our children at school, they'll be using e-books and electronic blackboards, so we move into the 21st century in that way, and we don't have the tons of books and bending their backs with that. That is our future. And all of these issues that arise create opportunities for new jobs, new types of jobs, for these types of skills that our young people are developing now. Trinidad and Tobago, in the next 5 to 10 years, the same way you can't make us out now in a political meeting, in a general election, in 5 to 10 years, you won't make out Trinidad and Tobago, because we are committed to going into the world of e-identity and the world of digitization. That is what this government offers you for your future. That is what this government says to you. We hold on to the gains that we have made. We preserve the jobs that we can preserve, and we must preserve, and we create new opportunities for people who are looking to this country for opportunity to be better. Our young people, these are difficult times, but our future is very bright. So come August 10th, it is not the government's responsibility to elect the government. It is you, the people, it is your responsibility at the individual level. The same way, it is your responsibility at the individual level to protect your health and your family's health by following the health protocols now in this pandemic. It is your responsibility at the individual level to come to the polls and vote for a responsible government, the government that is the right choice for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And come 2020 August 10th, the right choice for this country, the right choice for Trinidad and Tobago is the People's National Movement. We will campaign, we will rally, and we will vote. And come the night of August 10th, when all is said and done, and you would have acted and voted wisely, I'll hear you from Cedros to Tobago, from Karana to Sangre from Karapit Chaima to Barataria. We'll hear this song, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM.